Tonight I invite you to travel across ages and realms. To meet 5 royal couples who stood at the edge of tradition and said yes to a love that refused to be caged. In palaces and courts. In whispered corridors and crowded thrones. Their hearts chose curiosity over fear, tenderness over protocol. And a future they could not yet see. If you've ever wondered whether true romance can survive the weight of a crown, listen closely. These are stories where devotion became courage and where love learned to breathe again, even when the world said, move on. Our first couple sails in on the tides of ancient seas. Where a queen's gaze could bend the strategy of empires. Cleopatra VII, sovereign of the Nile, met Mark Antony. A general whose banners shook the corners of Rome. Their bond did more than warm a longing. It stitched a seam between 2 worlds that rarely trusted one another. Cleopatra was not content to rule alone. And Antony was not willing to be a shadow behind a Roman sun or a distant ally in a game of power. They chose to orbit each other. Learning the language of another culture. Letting words become weapons and warnings become whispers of devotion. Their choices were reckless in the eyes of the powerful. Risky in the ledger of history. Yet their hearts believed in a harmony that could outlast any siege. Even when enemies closed in and the night grew heavy with banners and rumors. They held on to each other with a fierce tenderness that felt almost like a new sun rising over the river. In the end, their romance did not rewrite Rome. But it redefined what a love story could demand: loyalty beyond borders. Passion that would outlive empires. And a sense that a single heartbeat could echo through centuries. Next, we cross a long sea and a changing century to a time of crowns and conventions in a small island kingdom. Wallis Simpson, a woman of captivating presence, crossed a boundary that few dared to cross. The boundary between the throne and a life shaped by longing. Edward VIII, the king who carried the weight of a nation on his shoulders, faced the choice that would bend the map of royal duty. The love between Wallis and Edward did not promise smooth sailing. It promised a life where judgments would be loud and loneliness might follow in their wake. They chose to stand by one another. To redefine what it meant to belong, not to a title, but to a shared future built on mutual care. The world whispered consequences: abdication, exile. A tabloid chorus, but the couple carried their private garden inside a crowded, scrutinizing world. Their decision became a quiet rebellion. Love capable of surviving the space between a crown and a kiss. A testament that even a throne can bend when 2 hearts decide to walk forward together. From the velvet hush of Monaco, we drift to a different kind of invitation: Grace Kelly. An American actress whose smile could light a room. Stepping into the life of Prince Rainier III. In her, cinema met sovereignty, and in him, a garden of responsibility and tradition awaited. Love here bore a gentler revolution. A girl with a dream of acting learned to speak the language of diplomacy. And a prince who learned to listen not just to statecraft but to quiet glances that said, "You belong here." Their bond endured through the glare of cameras. Through the demands of public duty. Through the lessons of reform and renewal that Monaco would navigate. Grace did not give up her starry past. She wove it into a new tapestry where glamour met governance with a softness that felt like a new era. Their romance whispered that a life can be bigger than a title. And that happiness can be a well-watered garden, tended with patience, humor, and trust. Close to the earth of Britain. A different kind of romance blossomed between Diana, a shy girl from a small world, and Charles, a prince who carried the weight of centuries in his hands. Their story began with a spark that felt almost inevitable. A collision of youth and destiny that drew 2 people toward one another with the force of gravity. Yet the path to lasting affection here was paved with cameras, expectations, and the relentless chorus of public opinion. They faced storm after storm: the glare of intrusive journalism, the ache of unmet needs, the loneliness that comes when a crown keeps you apart from the ordinary rhythms of life. And yet, There remained a childlike belief in each other's goodness, a willingness to apologize, to adjust, to grow. The romance did not conquer every obstacle, but it did something gentler. It opened millions of hearts to the possibility that even inside gilded rooms, love can learn to breathe again. And that true compassion can rewrite the terms of a relationship more than any decree could. Our final chapter returns to the era of revolution and empire and to a pair whose bond traveled the distance between privilege and probability. Napoleon Bonaparte, ambitious commander. Found in Josephine de Beauharnais not a mere ally but a partner who challenged his pace, dared his pride, and matched his hunger for a future. Their love survived the weight of politics and the ache of separation. Josephine's warmth and wit gave Napoleon a steadiness he had not known he needed, while his ambition offered a fierce shelter for her own hopes. They learned to navigate the tides of fortune together, the triumphs that made a nation cheer, and the quiet hours when a whispered conversation or a shared glance could soften the edges of power. Even as the world tilted under their feet, they found in each other a sanctuary, the knowledge that a heart can stay brave when it is held in another heart's tenderness. And that sometimes the bravest act of all is choosing to love again after life has battered you. What threads bind these tales? Courage, yes. But also a stubborn tenderness, of belief that love does not merely endure, it grows, reshapes, and heals. These couples did not pretend that boundaries did not exist. They faced them, named them, and then chose to walk through or around them, carrying the warmth of their devotion as a map. In every era, in every land, love found a way when hearts stayed curious, when promises were kept not perfectly but generously, and when a single heartbeat could compose a future brighter than fear. If you carry a spark of hope that love can reappear after it seems lost, you're not alone. These 5 stories remind us that romance does not have to be flawless to be true. It can be bold, it can be quiet, it can be imperfect, and it can still win. The boundaries that once defined royal life can bend when 2 people choose to believe in a shared tomorrow. In the end, the lesson is simple and profound: love is a kind of courage. And courage is a kind of love we can practice every day, in small acts and grand gestures alike. May these memories brush against your heart and remind you that your own story, whether it carries a crown or just a pulse, can still find its own version of a happy ending. If you found yourself smiling at a memory you didn't know you kept, consider letting this spark linger. Share a thought. Subscribe for more journeys into romance that feels possible. And keep believing that even in the ordinary hours, love can rise with quiet, unwavering resolve. Perhaps the most enduring lesson these couples leave behind isn't only romance, but resilience. The stubborn belief that a worthy love can redraw the edges of a life. Boundaries exist to keep things safe, yes. But they can also serve as thresholds into new rooms we never expected to enter. When a heart chooses to walk through, it does more than change the story for 2 people. It rewrites the atmosphere around them, inviting others to imagine what might be possible in their own lives. If you listen closely, you'll hear the soft murmur of doors opening in different eras: a corridor in Alexandria, a balcony in London, a terrace in Monaco, a drawing room in Windsor, a garden in Paris. Each space becomes a witness to a decision to stay, to trust, to risk, to forgive. And we see that true courage isn't always loud. Often it arrives as a quiet, steady decision to prioritize love over fear, to let tenderness soften the sharpest disagreements, to build trust brick by patient brick. So wherever you are tonight, hold on to this reflection. Love can be a compass when life feels like a maze, and it can be a quiet home when the world grows loud. You may not wear a crown or carry a scepter, but you can decide to keep faith in your own kind of fairy tale, one that's written in acts of kindness, in long conversations, in the forgiveness that comes after hurt, in the generous promises kept day after day. If a memory spark lingers as you listen, let it. Share your favorite moment from these 5 couples in the comments, and remember, Every heart carries the possibility of a love that defies the odds. Thank you for spending this time with me. And may your own story keep finding fresh reasons to believe. Perhaps the most meaningful endings aren't endings at all, but new beginnings that begin year after year with a simple, brave choice to love. Hear us to love that endures beyond.